Okay, so last week we created this movies scaffold, and it created all of the things we needed to deal with the database. And if we look at our migration file for our movies, this shows all of the columns in our table, right? We have a movies table, and we have a name column that's a string, and a director column that's a string, and a description that's a lot of text, a year that's an integer, length that's decimal, and we added format for some reason. And then the timestamps were a created record timestamp and a modified record timestamp. All right, so today we're going to talk about dealing with validation. So I'm going to go ahead and run my page here. And in the last assignment where you did the contact page, you had to check to see if the field had something in it and then put an error message out on the page saying you needed the name, etc. Remember that? So in Rails, we do validation in the model itself. Remember I said that putting validation in the HTML is useless, right? You can put required all you want on the HTML tag, and I can bypass that in seconds. That just takes no time at all. So ideally, you're going to do validation as close to the model as possible. So we're going to check that the data is correct before we put it into the database, right? We don't want to store stuff in our database that's going to be bad data. So we're going to do the validations inside the model itself. So let's just go and load our page. Let's go to movies. No, my proxy's wrong. Got it. This is very annoying. I need to have some program that'll do this for me. Just sit there and constantly reset this thing. All right, so there we go. There's my movies scaffolding. And this is the index page. So movies without anything after it says give me all the movies in my table, and I only have one. And I can say create a new movie. And if I just hit create movie, there's no validation on this. It successfully created a record with all blanks in it, which is bad, right? You don't want people to be able to save that. So when I go look at this, now I've got this table here with all blanks in it. I can edit it and show it and destroy it, but it's all blanks. Ideally, I would want to stop that before it got into my database. So to do that, we edit the file that is our model. So if we go up to our models in our app and look at our movie.rb, this is the code that was generated for us in the model portion of the model view controller loop, right? So when it goes out and gets the data or saves the data, we want to validate some of those fields. So one of the fields was the name of the movie. So I can say there's a validates. I just want to make sure that it has something in it, right? So there's a method called validates presence of. These validations are very wordy, all right? And all I have to do is tell it what column do I want to be required. Well, the name as a symbol, that's the name of my column, right, that has the name. So now if I go back here and try to create a new movie without anything in the name, it says, one error prohibited this movie from being saved. The name can't be blank. It did that all for me. I didn't have to do anything with the flashes because the scaffolding created all that for me.
No, that's almost worse than dragging and dropping.
Isn't that worse than dragging and dropping? You're right. That's very true. I have to admit that. So if we go look at the code, let's go look at the code for that to see where that's coming from. In the view, what view is being displayed? when I hit create a new movie?
Movies probably index or review. It's new.html.
All right, and so that calls what? What is this line doing here? Taunting you. It says, render me the partial called form, and partials have an underscore in the file name, but not when you call them. So we look at our form.html, and here is the code that displays our form, and this is the code that displays the errors if there are any. All right, so this is a div. It's got an ID of error explanation. It puts an H2, and it pluralizes this error if it needs to. That it pluralizes error or errors. That's what that's doing. It's going to pluralize based on the count of errors that I have in this data structure here. Errors is a hash, so it's going to count how many elements I have in my hash. If it's 1, it's going to be error. If it's 2 or more, it's going to be errors. That's all that does. Then it's going to say, prohibited this movie from being saved. And then what it does is it takes this hash, this is an array of all the messages, and doing each loop through them, and just display the messages. All right, so that validation error that I added, that validation validates presence of, what it does is, that's like code, remember the attr_accessor? That generates more code on that particular field that sets this message variable if that particular field had a problem. And it knows that based on the name, so if you look at it, it says name can't be blank. Where do you think it got that name? From the symbol, right? So that symbol gave it everything it needed, and I said validates presence of, so it used this message, pre-canned message, that says it can't be blank. All right? Isn't that cool? So that message is just being displayed in this little loop here. That's all that's doing. And then it redisplays the data with the sticky information there already. It's already sticky. So if I had more stuff in here and had some numbers and some format, and I created the movie, still it says it can't do it, but look at that. Everything is sticky. Isn't that beautiful? I didn't have to do anything to do that. Isn't that nice? So, isn't that too easy? So, how would we add validation on the director? What?
Oh, that was my question. Can you go back to your movie?
Oop.
Are we in the controller or are we in the movie?
Well, where did we do validations? Where do we try to do them? In the model, as close to where we're going to save them to the database, right? So in our model, we go back to our movie, and we can say, not only do we want that one, but we want the director, right? All right? But the year is a number, right? So we want to make sure the number is a number. We don't want them to type ONE as being a number, right? So there's another validation method called validates numericality of, which is really wordy, all right? We want to make sure that it is a number. So what parts of our data was a number? Well, we have a year and the length, and that's enough, right? The year and the length are both numbers, so it's of the number class. So we just change our movie from the year and the length. All right, so now when I try to post this and I put text in here, first of all, the browser says, wait a minute, that's not a number. So the browser is doing some level of that. But again, is that sufficient? Absolutely not. So if I put numbers in here, it's going to work. I can't get past the browser unless I fool it myself. Length.
That's not a number type. It looks like it's length is not a number type.
Yeah, it was a decimal.
But not for the browser, just for Ruby.
Well, let's see. What did I have? Oh, you think it'll work? Yay. Okay, good. So you're right. This was a decimal, so it came in as not a number. So this is length is not a number. So it gave you a valid explanation why this message could not be completed. For what? Just a second. So there are lots of validations that we can do in field with IntelliSense. I can validate absence of, acceptance of, associated confirmation, each, all kinds of things. The size of, uniqueness of. All of these let us do, I could do regular expressions with this.
Is that uniqueness related to the database or
To the field itself, to that specific field. So say you had an email field in your user table and you want that only that person to be able to sign up once. You could say uniqueness of, and it would not allow that to continue if you had somebody else use that email already. All right? In your database, right? So I could do that with my products. I could say validates uniqueness of my name. And then if I try to, let's go look at what I have so I can try to create it. So I have a name of Walking Dead. So let's go try to create a new movie called Walking Dead. And create the movie. And it got 4 errors. And it says name has already been taken. So it makes sure that that field is unique across your database, right? Yes. Yeah. Very easy, isn't it nice? So let's go look at the API. There's lots of things. Ruby on Rails, and we look at validations. And these are all the different validations that we can do. Let's see, where are they? Validate. Acceptance of. Let's go to one of these. All right, so here's all of the validates absence of. Make sure that it doesn't have a first name. Make sure that it doesn't have that. Must be blank, which is odd. I'm not sure I'd use that. You could also add a custom message to this instead of the default message. So let's say we can add that to our uniqueness of. We could say message is already used. Right? And when we now go back and try to load this again, it says name already used, stupid. And by default, it's going to give you the name of the column, whatever that value is. So you need to make your sentences work with that. Already used. So name is, I might say is already used, stupid, to be very correct. But not politically correct. Acceptance of would mean that maybe you have a checkbox and it has been checked. So they've accepted a checkbox. And so maybe they've read the terms of service. So that's usually used for checkboxes. Confirmation of, you'll see this when we get into the user records, that when you type in a password, they usually want you to type in the password again to confirm it, or the email address again. So it confirms those two fields together. The username and the password have to be confirmed, meaning there's an email address confirmed, or here, they have it here, a password and a password confirmation as the name of the field, and it uses these names to tie them into this confirmation. So if those two don't match, it's going to say these two don't match. Exclusion of, and this is where we get into some sets. We can make sure that the username is not admin and super user because we don't want them to be able to create a username with that, right? Format of, this is where we get into our regular expressions. Right, something like that. We can say it's got to be length, which is useful. Say that the maximum name can't be over 30. So let's try that one. Let's play with that. So in our, let's see, length of the format, I think is what we called it, right? Let's say that its maximum can't be greater than 5. All right? So when I go back and try to create this with a format that has more than 5 characters, I should get that error as well. Format is too long. I can also say the format has got to be a minimum of 2. And so if I have one that has a format of 1, it's going to say format is too short. Isn't that sweet?
Very customized.
I got to hear ooh, ah. Isn't that great? Do you know how hard this would be in PHP?
We'll find out next quarter.
Very difficult. That's another week to add validation, I'm telling you. Yeah, it's very difficult. So, yeah, I'm not selling PHP, that's for sure. So there's a lot of different things we can add. I can have within a range. I can allow blanks or not. I can change the message. Numericality of, I can say it's equal to or less than or equal to. I can have all of these different, I can make sure it is only an odd number. All kinds of weird differences that I can have for a number to make sure that they don't enter 0, for instance. So I could say
validates presence of appropriate information.
let's see, where was the, I could say greater than, let's see, greater than 0. Okay, so the length of a movie cannot be 0, right? So we'll change this, my length validates numericality of, and let's just add a value of greater than 0. Right? So that when I do any of these two fields, I'm going to get now more errors that say, well, it's not a number, so let's change length to 0, which is a number.
Yeah, that got. Oh, weird.
Year must be greater than 0. And if I do both of them, I get year must be greater than 0 and length must be greater than 0. Beautiful, eh?
So if you put a maximum on there and you put zeros, then more than that, will it count the 0 as 1, or will it throw 2 errors?
Should still just be 0.
Well,
Put like 6 zeros and it's set.
like this one, my format has got to be between 2 and 5. So it finds this one first, and it never gets to the length of. So once you fix that it's greater than 0, this will fall into place. So you see that I don't get, no, it actually did it both at the same time. It said my format is too short. So format is too short. It had to be 2 characters long. So mine has to be at least 10. I'm doing the wrong one. So it's a different, sorry. Forget all of that. Yes.
This is off topic.
No, good.
Images,
Yep.
can you do that in 15, 14 minutes?
Yes. All right. Any other questions on validation? Huh? What?
Back to the code, please.
Oh, the code.
Yes.
We have to
Click
validate
happy
this.
again.
Yeah, beat you.
Do I have to validate what?
The decimal.
The numericality would be good enough for that, yeah. All right, so that's all you have to do, figure out what the column needs to have in it, and everything on this particular page should be validated, just to get you used to using some validations. All right, so now let's look at the images, all right? So did I have an image in my movie table? I don't.
Nice work, Dave.
That's not good. Shoot, maybe I can't do it in 14 minutes. Let's see. So let's show you a quick thing here. If I forgot a column in my table, it's typically considered bad form to just destroy this and recreate it, right? Because then I'd have to re-add all the stuff into it, and it's just a pain. So as we're developing, that's why they have this concept of migrations. I can add an additional field to my movies table very simply. All right. So let's go. I can say right-click, new generator, and I want to generate a migration. All right. And what's nice about Rails is I can make this. I can name this migration something that Rails can figure out in English. I can say add image to model, to movies. All right? And I want to add a string called image, and it's going to be a string. Right? So this name is important. It uses this name to generate the migration file for me in the right way. All right? So I'm going to say, okay. All that does is create a file, generates me a file. Again, Ruby writing Ruby. And it adds a new class called add image to movie. And it says, okay, you must want to add a column. It took that from the name here. And it's going to my movies table, I want to add the column image, and its type is going to be a string. So how do I execute this migration? DB migrate, right? So it added a different timestamp. So it also keeps track of which migration files I have executed already in my database. So the next one coming up is going to be this one. It knows it hasn't done this. So if I do a DB migrate, which is already set up for me, and run that, it's going to execute this code, alter my table, add a new column to it of this type. All right? So it did the add column for me. And now if I look at my schema file, this is a file that is kept up to date based on what you've modified with your table. So this is all of the fields in my movie. And you notice that I now have an image field in my movies table. All right. Now the one thing it doesn't do is modify all of my pages here. So my show page, for instance, doesn't have an image field here. So I need to add that myself. It doesn't it doesn't do everything for you. You've got to do a little bit of code. So I'm going to copy this and paste this and change this to the image. And this is going to be image, all right? So let's just see what that looks like. I have to change it in my show and in my form partial so that I can add it, right? So I'm going to just take this div, copy and paste, and change this to image, and this to image. And it's not a, it's a text field, sorry. I keep thinking it's a text area. So it's a text field. And so that's on the form, and since it's in a partial, that modifies both the new form and the edit form, right? And my show page has it. I'm not going to put it on my index page, but I could do the same thing here, add a new column that would show the image, right? So let's just see what that looks like for now. And then we'll go back and actually add an image. So if I reload this page, let's go back and say edit this movie. Now I've got a new field here, and I could say the image is going to be skis dot. Let's see. Let's put it in movies / skis dot JPEG. Update my movie, and now my image is not there. It's gone. So there's one more thing I have to do here, apparently. And this might be a new 4.0 thing. Let me see. So yes, this is a new 4.0 thing. So in this movie params that gets called on every action here, it's allowing these different fields to be set in the database, right? So I need to add my new field here. So obviously, it pays to do this all up front and make sure you have all your data in the right place at first. But now this should allow me to edit this. And there we go. All right. So in my database, I'm storing a path to my movies, right? To my skis for my image. So let's go put that file in place, and I put all my files in my images folder, and I'm going to create a new folder in here that's just for my movie images. All right, and let's put in, let's just make a copy of this add 125, and I'll rename it to skis. So, because we're running out of time here. All right, so now my path name is going to be assets/images, assets/movies/skis. So how do I display an image in my views? Instead of the path name, I want to show the actual image. Image tag, okay? So in my view for my show page, that's probably where a good place to put it. Instead of showing the string to the name, I want to put instead an image tag to my movie.image instead. All right, let's see what happens here. Ta-da! Isn't that beautiful? How easy that was? Easy. So let's look at the URL. Let's just open the image and you see what the URL looks like here. It's assets/movies/skis. Because it's an image tag, it doesn't recognize the actual images folder, right? It takes that out. So it's just assets/movies/image. So I can have any hierarchy under the images folder that I wanted. So I might have a different folder for products and a different folder for blogs and things like that. That kind of makes sense, right? But as the user enters it, they have to put the right name in the database, right? That name has to be correct or the image isn't going to show up.
That's why in real life you never give users access to it.
Right, exactly right. You never let users do that themselves. All right, so we added images. See how easy that was? And I would typically do that only on the show page. I'm not going to show the images here. Maybe on your index page you would show the thumbnail as a smaller version, and on your show page you're going to show the big one. That's typically what people would do.
That's required, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It might be in my code here. I don't remember if I actually put that in there.
I recall seeing thumbnail.
Yeah, thumbnail.
Yeah, I know I have a thumbnail. I just don't say where you put it. So,
So they just have to have it.
yeah, you want to display the actual image, not the text of the image path. All right. Any questions on that? Isn't that cool?
That was awesome.
Awesome stuff. So simple. You got lost. All right. We'll look at that.